up, future shred lords? Welcome back. Death to the fingers. We're going to be talking about how improvisation effectively, it creates uniqueness, if you will, as a guitar player, which is insanely important. One of the biggest sort of complaints I hear from players, generally speaking, is that this person sounds like a clone, or they're technically gifted and whatnot, but their music's not that interesting. I see this everywhere. Really, really, really good guitar players getting marginalized, if you will, because they sound too close to somebody else, or there's no sort of distinct personality. Their shred is like top notch, but nobody really cares anymore, because that's not enough. Now all of a sudden you have to have some sort of a personality. Now some people have like a hat, like Slash does. He's still a good guitar player, don't get me wrong. He's awesome. But he also has this identity, that people can sort of glom onto, and that's just it. Those days are gone too now. So it's about your personality on the guitar. Well, how do you get that? How do you develop this personality? Mark Knopfler has it. David Gilmour has it. I don't think anybody's going to be like, yeah, I don't know who that is. If you have any sort of like basic music education, or pick the music style that you like and then pick two big bands and you'll be able to recognize the difference. You know what I'm talking about. That's what I mean. It's because the person making the music understands it in such and such a way, but more importantly, develop the character traits, musically speaking, to effectively express themselves rather than just act as a Rosetta Stone, spitting out some variation of what's already been said. You know what I mean? And that's innovation. And so when you're practicing, you want to sort of create the dynamic environment that allows you to think on your feet and be agile, mentally speaking, because that's really what you're trying to achieve. And then, of course, the final apotheosis is once you've practiced enough, you start to recognize those really juicy outside notes, which then triggers a whole set of new sort of possibilities in terms of scales with the harmonic and melodic minor and whatnot, once you know how to use them. Okay, so I get it. At first, it seems really daunting and whatnot, because you're just like, well, I'm not really comfortable just putting on some music and then playing music along with it, whether it's chords or scales or whatever else it is. I'm used to practicing, going up and down the scale and, working on my rudiments, which is good and everything like that. But of course, you're missing out on groove. You're missing out on the slides and the vibrato and the bends. I think a lot of it is just people being self-conscious. You can see that I make mistakes all the time. Fuck it. Okay, like, listen, that's real music. And I've seen the best guitar players in the world and people that are legendary make mistakes galore. Okay, so just make mistakes and just be like, don't dwell on it. That's Beethoven. You know what I mean? So listen, this goes back a very, very long way. It's about state of mind. And of course, here's the thing. When you're in the moment, I just watched one yesterday with Gary Moore doing some, he was just like so in the moment. I'm like, look at him. He's having a seizure on stage and whatnot. It's like barely even music anymore. You know what I mean? It's like a religious experience. And I'm just like, imagine what he's feeling. He's just in the utter zone. And that's where you want to be. And that's just it. That clip is so legendary that they're still watching it to this day in 2026, and it had like 200 plus likes on it. And that's on the Twitters, where they have everything siloed. So if you were to let it go to the wider guitar community, it would have thousands and thousands of likes. No real music sort of shred there. Nothing to be overly impressive. Just him basically wailing on one note, and it's questionable whether he stays in tune in the right places or whatever else. But it was all about the moment. You kind of get where I'm going with this. It was the showmanship factor. And that's just it. You got to work up the confidence to just take, chances. Now, listen, I prefer the shred when it's like, more like Friday night in San Francisco or something, where it's just like, damn. But, I totally get where Gary's coming from too. So, food, take everything with a grain of salt, I guess is better to say. But that's really the big takeaway is don't turn yourself into a shred automaton. Even though I'm kind of going shred madness here, I'm still trying to find that healthy balance of organic sort of rootsy bluesiness, you know, that made guys like George Lynch and DeMartini and all the greats, you know what I mean, into like these absolute shred icons. I just love the juiciness of the blues where you could just dig into those notes. It's just, I don't know. I don't even care if it's been done before. You know what I mean? I'm trying to put my own spin on it and I'm having fun. So that's all that really matters, I suppose. And I don't really sound like anybody that actually recognized that I actually look up to as guitar players like in the old days. So I guess that's kind of a bonus. But then again, can you really critique your own playing? I don't know if that's true. So bit of a paradox there, but you know what I'm getting at is that for me, that's the, you know, those the bee's knees. And so you got to find your own happy medium too, but then practice it in sort of like this creative dynamic. And I think you'll find the results speak for themselves because the confidence factor goes way up, which means you take more chances and you feel sort of more fulfilled from your practice sections because you actually did something of value. I know there's a part of you that knows that you're only half-assing it when you just play the scales and everything else, and you can kind of go through it and you know that. So it's about upping the ante, the unpredictable factor of being like, just play to this music. You throw on a vamp that's a D7. All right, play something under this D7 vamp. Immediately, if you're actually practicing with focus, you'd be like, I need to do something in the Mixolydian mode or with the dominant 7 arpeggio sequence, obviously starting with the root on D, the 10th fret, or the 5th fret on the A string. I know, I just absolutely railed you right there. You enjoyed it. So, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of where this gets to. You have to start to localize and then be like, what can I do here? And then try to come up with a sound. Can I harness the Mixolydian here, or is it just going to come out sounding like a major scale? What would be a sympathetic mode to basically layer over top as a general rule? So anytime I was playing a basic dominant 7 chord, didn't matter if it was D or A or C, I could do this sort of parallel scale relative to that. Because you'd be like, C7, that's the 5th degree of what scale? You tell me, right? So once you get that far, you can be like, well, this parallel scale over here works over top nicely. And then you're like, these two scales basically intersect. All I have to do is move up a half step or down or whole step or whatever it is. But they basically blend. They have synergy, right? So you get tension and release. So there it is, the whole enchilada served up. But that's just it. It's very difficult to basically do all of that in the moment, you know, while you're improvising. So it takes a lot of practice. Well, if you're not actually practicing it, obviously you're not going to get the results you want. So there's this huge aspect about practice that people don't understand. You sit down and you grind through the scale shapes to get those scale shapes under your fingers. But then they're starting to use them as regions and or as sort of, you know, interest points in your improvisations so that you can create the tension and release to make your playing more interesting, right? Where you're focusing on doing some melody stuff and using vibratos and slides and everything else, all of that stuff. That's your guitar DNA. And you have to consistently work on it all the time so that you get better and more precise. This time I actually managed to sort of make some of those God slides and notice they sound awesome, right? I stole that from Jakey Lee and countless other killer guitar players, right? I'm like, look at that. They can just slide like 10, 12 frets and nail that note. It's because they can hear it. That's the thing. Once you stop trying to be like, I have to gauge the distance and just be like, stop when you hit the right note and just do it in the blink of an eye. Yeah, there's a huge portion of luck in there too. Don't get me wrong. But there it is. So that's the video. You saw the first jam. There's another one here where I just kind of continue on. And the idea is just sort of start structuring your practice sessions like this. And then create melodies. You'll notice that I slow it down a bit and then just try to build something musically speaking. If you're not great at the shred, start there. But if you are good with the shredder. You're getting up there, hammer-ons and pull-offs, alternate picking runs. Don't worry about being perfect. Try to transition perfectly between the different techniques so you maintain articulation and musical continuity. Okay? Stop focusing in on the minutia and try to think big picture to be like, if I put these two cool phrases together, I'm going to get this awesome resolution. Then you are the master of music, sort of. You'll have to go up against Bach. Good luck. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you in the next one.